wedding guest told to leave when he arrived in his military uniform. The bride had no idea that her big day was going to take a tragic turn just because of a single man who dressed differently. Out of over 300 guests, the bride only asked the military uniform man to get out. What happened next was just unexpected. The biggest unwritten rule of any wedding is not to upstage the bride. It's meant to be her special day, and the one she has been looking forward to her entire life. One bride's wedding guest turned up in a military uniform, and instead of welcoming the man, she threw him out of her ceremony. The wedding guest who showed up wearing his uniform wasn't a very close friend of the couple. Obviously, they knew who he was, but the military man wasn't their best friend or anything. In fact, the man in question was a relative of a close family friend of the couple. He may have been someone's +1, but he was about to become a -1. The bride had taken issue with the fact that this man showed up in military dress attire rather than black tie attire as specified on the invitation. Upon his arrival at the wedding, it was clear this military man was very well dressed. But little did he know that his attire was about to make a big fuss. The bride wrote that her wedding guest had turned up wearing his Marines formal wear. In addition to wearing his military dress uniform, the Marine displayed his patriotism by pinning all of his medals to his chest. Despite the fact that impressed the guests, the bride didn't like his outfit. Besides the outfit that the Marine chose to wear to the wedding, the bride said that the man was practically a perfect guest. There was a small group of young guests who liked the Marine despite the fact that they were there for someone else's wedding. The military man gracefully agreed to be in the young girls' pictures because they were so excited to meet him. He wasn't deliberately causing a scene, but he was distracting. The bride stated in her Reddit post that she has nothing against members of the military but emphasized that it was a black tie event. She had the impression that the Marine in dress uniform was very out of place, and she assumed that he might be trying to brag. Wedding guest lists can spiral out of control if you're not very selective about who you invite. This bride had over 300 guests coming to her wedding, and it was one big celebration of love. But among the other guests, no one else had felt the need to try and stand out by the clothes that they wore. The Marine's choice of outfit wasn't sitting well with the bride. She said it's totally fine if the military man wants to wear that kind of outfit to his own wedding, but hers had a dress code. The bride believed that the purpose of a dress code was to prevent anyone from standing out from the crowd. According to the bride, it was impossible for the Marine to blend in with everyone else. However, it was altogether a different experience for the man. Thanks to the uniform, he was making plenty of friends with the other guests. People were approaching him to express their gratitude for the service he had rendered to his nation. He was now facing the scorn of a bride on her wedding day, something no one really wants. The bride believed that the Marine's sole motivation in wearing his uniform was to steal her spotlight and turn her special day into one about him. She felt as though this was something that you just aren't meant to do at someone else's wedding. The uniform wasn't impressing this bride, and before long she was sick of seeing the Marine. It was meant for her to be the center of attention today and not him. Upon seeing the Marine in his uniform, the bride couldn't stop getting distracted. According to the bride, the whole point of uniforms in the military is to make sure the people don't stand out from each other. But now he was using his uniform for precisely that reason, to stand out from everyone else. Despite the fact that it was distracting the wedding guests, the bride simply couldn't get past the man in his uniform. Even though it was her special day, the bride felt like everyone was focusing on the guest. She and her husband were meant to be the stars of the show that day, but the man was drawing too much attention, and the bride wasn't thrilled. There was nothing else the bride could do to stop him from distracting everyone. He had to go. And the tragic moment came when the bride was about to make a big move. The bride asked the man in the military uniform to leave so she could regain control of her wedding. It was time for him to leave because she had enough and didn't want him to stay any longer. The bride did admit on her Reddit post that she felt bad about asking the man to leave. He had made a special effort, but he hadn't followed the dress code according to this newlywed. She said that even though she felt bad, him being at her wedding didn't feel right. But whatever the bride did, there were polarizing points of view on the internet, and it didn't take long for battle lines to be drawn in the Reddit thread. Some people supported the bride's actions that day, while others couldn't agree with what she did to someone wearing a military uniform. Some of the people on Reddit were quick to point out that the Marines' formal uniform is classy and can look black tie when compared to other uniforms, while some of the users thought the uniform was subtle enough to wear to a black tie event and felt what the Marine did was wrong. His choice of attire, in their opinion, was extremely disrespectful to the bride and groom because it violated their dress code. Despite the fact that both sides of the debate presented polarizing points of view, the majority of participants agreed. On the forum, it was generally agreed that both the bride and the Marine had acted inappropriately.